My name is Angela Hughes. I'm 36 years old. 5 years ago, my parents told me they couldn't afford to save my 7-year-old daughter's life. They said they were struggling, stretched thin, living on a fixed income. 2 months later, I found out they had co-signed a $600,000 lakeside house for my brother. And the purchase agreement, it had been signed just 2 weeks before my daughter's heart stopped beating. They don't know this, but I kept everything. Every receipt, every email, every text message, 72 pages of proof. Last month, my brother collapsed in his office in Chicago. Acute leukemia. Aggressive. The doctor said he needed a bone marrow donor. A perfect 10 out of 10 match. My mother called me for the first time in 4 years. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Angela, you're his only chance. What I did next shattered everything they thought they knew about me. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, but only if you believe that sometimes. It's in the most difficult moments of life that people reveal who they truly are. And I'd really love to know, where are you listening from right now? And what's the temperature there? Just a small note, this is a fictional story, with some elements enhanced by AI to make the experience more vivid and emotionally engaging. Now, let me take you back to a time when I still believed my parents loved both of their children equally. I was born in 1990. My brother, Daniel Hughes, was born 4 years earlier, in 1986. We grew up in Brookfield, Illinois, one of those quiet, upper-middle-class suburbs where every house had a manicured lawn, two-car garage, and expectations you could feel in the air. My father was a financial analyst at a regional firm. My mother, Karen Hughes, worked as a senior banking manager. On the surface, everything looked perfect, the kind of family you'd see smiling in holiday cards. But if you looked closer, if you looked at the numbers, you'd start to notice the pattern. Daniel's college fund when we were growing up, $38,000. Mine $9,000. $300. I didn't find out until years later, when I was helping my parents transfer old files onto a new laptop. I remember staring at those numbers, my chest tightening. I asked my mom about it once casually, like it didn't matter. She smiled and said, "Sweetheart, Daniel's older. We had more time to save for him. Don't worry, we'll help you too." They helped with loans. I graduated from the University of Illinois in 2012 with $64,000 in student debt. Daniel graduated from Northwestern in 2008, debt-free, with a 6-figure job waiting for him at a major investment firm. Christmas 1998 is something I'll never forget. I was 8. Daniel was 12. He unwrapped a brand new gaming console, latest model. 4 games. Everything. I got a secondhand bicycle. They had spray painted it blue because they knew it was my favorite color. "We thought you'd enjoy getting outside more," my dad said, smiling. I smiled back. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself love wasn't about money. I was wrong. Family dinners slowly turned into stages where Daniel's success was the main performance. Thanksgiving 2015 stands out the most. I had just started working at a nonprofit organization in Chicago, helping homeless families find stable housing. I was earning $42,000 a year, and I was proud of what I did. It mattered to me. It changed lives. My mom placed the turkey on the table and turned to Daniel with a bright smile. "Tell everyone about your deal, sweetheart." Daniel leaned back in his chair, completely at ease in the spotlight. "I closed a $13 million acquisition last week. Biggest one in our division this quarter." Everyone clapped. My dad raised his glass. "That's my son." Then, almost like an afterthought, my mom glanced at me. "Angela, how's your job at that nonprofit going?" The way she said nonprofit made it sound like a temporary hobby, not a career. "It's good. I said. We helped place 3 families into permanent housing this month. That's nice. Honey, Daniel's bonus that year was $360,000. I know because he mentioned it casually, like he was talking about the weather. When I met Michael in 2013, the first thing my parents asked was whether he made good money. Michael was a civil engineer, earning around $62,000 at the time. Stable, reliable. We fell in love quickly, the kind of love that feels inevitable. Like your lives were always meant to intersect. When Daniel started dating Rebecca, a corporate attorney with elite clients and a luxury lifestyle. My parents didn't ask about her character. They asked about her connections. That was the difference. Michael proposed in 2014. We had only been together for a year. I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. But we were happy. Nervous. Yes. But ready. My parents weren't. At my baby shower, my mom forced a polite smile. Well, at least Michael has a steady job. Engineering. Right. That's practical. My dad handed us a check for $500 as a baby gift. Later, I found out he had given Daniel $20,000 that same month to help with a down payment on his first luxury car. My daughter, Sophie Claire Hughes, was born on April 7, 2014. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She had my eyes, bright and curious, and Michael's smile, the kind of smile that could soften even the hardest days. My parents visited twice during her first year. Daniel sent a $50 online gift card. I told myself it was fine. They were busy. Daniel had a demanding career. My parents had their own lives. I had my own family now. Michael and I had each other. We had Sophie. That was enough. I told myself that for 7 years. Until the day everything began to fall apart. May 14th, 2021. Sophie collapsed at school. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Reynolds, called me while I was in the middle of a case meeting, helping a single mother secure emergency housing. My phone vibrated. I almost ignored it. We weren't supposed to take personal calls during meetings, but something made me look. Ms. Hughes. This is Laura Reynolds, Sophie's teacher. She fainted during recess. The nurse is with her. But I think you should come right away. I was in my car within minutes. When I arrived, Sophie was sitting in the nurse's office, pale, but smiling when she saw me. Hi. Mommy. I'm okay. I just got a little dizzy. The nurse pulled me aside. Her heart rate was very elevated, around 132 beats per minute. She also mentioned feeling tired recently. I'd strongly recommend getting her checked out. We went straight to the emergency room that afternoon. They ran an EKG. The doctor came back a while later. He looked exhausted, but kind. Mrs. Hughes, your daughter's heart rhythm is abnormal. My stomach dropped. I'm referring you to pediatric cardiology at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. They'll need to perform an echocardiogram. Lurie Children's, one of the best pediatric hospitals in the country. You don't get referred there for something minor. The appointment was scheduled for May 20th. 6 days of barely sleeping. 6 days of watching Sophie laugh at cartoons, play with her toys, completely unaware that something inside her might be dangerously wrong. Michael took the day off. We drove together in silence, holding hands. Sophie sat in the back seat, quietly singing along to her favorite movie soundtrack. Room 5C, Pediatric Cardiology. Doctor, Emily Carter. She was in her mid-40s, with calm eyes and a steady voice, the kind that keeps you grounded even when your world is about to collapse. Dr. Emily Carter performed the echocardiogram herself, slowly moving the wand across Sophie's chest while Sophie stared at the screen with wide, curious eyes. Is that my heart? She asked. It is. Doctor, Carter replied gently. Pretty amazing. Right. When the scan was finished, She smiled at Sophie and asked if she wanted to pick out a sticker in the waiting area. A nurse took her hand and led her out of the room. Then Dr. Carter turned back to us and sat down. "Mr. and Mrs. Hughes," she said calmly, "Sophie has dilated cardiomyopathy. Her heart muscle is enlarged and not pumping efficiently. Her ejection fraction is 27%. A healthy range is between 50 and 70. I heard the words, but they didn't fully register. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means her heart is failing." Michael let out a sound beside me, like the air had been knocked out of him. Dr. Carter continued, her voice steady and compassionate. She explained that the condition was likely genetic, something that could run in families. It would continue to worsen over time. Without intervention, Sophie's heart would keep weakening. What kind of intervention? I managed to ask. "She needs a heart transplant." The room seemed to tilt. "A transplant," I repeated. She nodded. She explained that the national waiting list could take over a year, but Sophie's condition was severe enough that she could qualify for priority status, which would significantly improve her chances of receiving a donor heart in time. But there was a step before that. To get her listed, we require a deposit. Michael's voice sounded distant. A deposit. Dr. Carter slid a paper across the desk toward us. I stared at it. Heart transplant listing. Deposit $190,000. Estimated insurance coverage $35,000. Patient responsibility $155,000. My vision narrowed. Locking onto that number, $155,000. "I know this is overwhelming," Dr. Carter said softly. "The total cost of the transplant and first-year care is over $1 million. But insurance will cover most of it once she's listed. This deposit is what gets her onto that list. Without it..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "If she doesn't get the transplant," I whispered. "What happens, Doctor?" Carter met my eyes. 6 months to a year. Possibly less. Michael turned away, his shoulders shaking. "And with the transplant," I asked, "her 5-year survival rate is around 80%. 80%. Not a guarantee, but a chance. A real chance." "We need to move quickly," Dr. Carter said. "Ideally within the next 8 weeks. 8 weeks to find $155,000. I looked at Michael. He was staring at the paper like it was written in a language he couldn't understand. We drove home in silence. Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Her small body curled against the window. That night, after we tucked her into bed, Michael and I sat at the kitchen table and went through everything. Savings $13,000. Michael's 401k could be partially withdrawn. Maybe $45,000 after penalties? My 401k had about $20,000. We didn't own a house. We were renting. Our credit cards were already stretched thin from previous medical expenses. It wasn't enough. Not even close. We created a fundraiser page. Michael wrote the description. I couldn't, every time I tried. It felt like I was begging strangers to save my child. "Our daughter Sophie, age 7, needs a heart transplant to survive. Please help us give her a chance." We shared it everywhere. Social media, our church community, co-workers, parents from Sophie's school. 3 weeks later, we had raised $34,000 from over 1,900 people. Strangers, friends, people we had never met. $10, $20, $50. Messages filled with prayers and hope. I cried reading every single one, but we were still over $120,000 short. On June 5th at 2:10 in the morning, Michael sat across from me at the kitchen table. We had been awake for hours, calling banks, researching loans, searching for anything. "I called 16 banks," he said quietly. Medical debt isn't considered collateral. They all said no. I stared at the number on the paper. $120,000. Angela, Michael said quietly. We need your parents. I hadn't asked my parents for money in over 15 years. Not since college. When they made it very clear that needing help meant you hadn't planned your life properly. But this wasn't about me. This was about Sophie. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I called my mom first. June 9th, 2021, 7:18 p.m. The call lasted 11 minutes. I know because I checked the call log again and again afterward, trying to understand how something so important could fall apart so quickly. Mom, Angela. Hi. Sweetheart. How are you? Not good. I need to talk to you about something important. Is Dad there? He's watching TV. What's going on? I told her everything. The diagnosis, the test results, the transplant, the deposit, the fundraiser, the amount we were still missing. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Then she exhaled softly. Oh, honey. That's terrible. I'm so sorry. Her voice had that careful tone people use when they're already preparing to say no. Have you tried one of those online fundraisers? I've seen those work really well. We did. I said. We raised $34,000. We're still short. What about insurance? It will cover the surgery after she's listed. But we need the deposit first. Another pause. Let me talk to your father, she said. We'll call you back. They didn't call back that night, or the next day, or the day after that. 4 days later. My phone rang. June 13th, 7:06 p.m. My dad did all the talking. My mom stayed silent in the background. Angela, your mother explained the situation. We are heartbroken for you. Truly. But we need to be realistic about our finances. I tightened my grip on the phone. Okay, we retired early in 2020. We're living on a fixed income now. Social Security, pensions, and our retirement investments. Most of our funds are tied up. I could feel my pulse in my throat. If we start liquidating now, we could lose a significant portion. The market isn't stable. We can't jeopardize our future. Dad, I said, my voice breaking. Sophie is 7 years old, I understand that. But we also have to think long term. Your mother and I are in our late 60s. What happens if we get sick? If we need care? My chest tightened. How much do you have in savings? A pause. That's not relevant. How much, Angela? We're not going to discuss our finances in detail. I need $120,000 to save my daughter's life. We don't have liquidity, he said firmly. Everything is tied up. I'm sorry. What about your house? You could take a loan against it. We can't risk foreclosure. You could sell it. The market is down. We'd take a loss. Every option I suggested. He shut down. Dad. Please. I whispered. I'm begging you. There was a long silence. I'm sorry. Angela. We wish we could help. But we can't. Then he hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for the moment to feel real. It didn't. Michael tried next. I didn't know about it at the time. He kept it from me for months because he didn't want to add more pain to what I was already carrying. He called my dad directly on June 23rd at 4:40 p.m. The call lasted 6 minutes, according to Michael. My father was even colder this time. Son, we understand you're scared, but we can't support financial irresponsibility. You need to look for other solutions. Then he said something that stayed with Michael long after. What about her biological father? Michael had gone quiet. Oh, wait, my dad added. That's not you. Is it Michael told me about that conversation 3 months after Sophie died? We were lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He said it like he had been holding it inside for too long. I didn't cry. I think something inside me had already broken by then. I just remember thinking. My father said that to my husband while our daughter was dying, on June 29th. Michael and I booked 2 plane tickets to Scottsdale, Arizona, where my parents had moved after retiring. We charged it to a credit card we couldn't afford to use. We didn't have another choice. We had to try one more time, face to face. My parents' house was in Scottsdale, Arizona, in a gated community called Desert Palms. I remember the address because I looked it up later. Estimated value just under $400,000. They had sold our old family home in Illinois after retiring and moved there for the sunshine, the quiet, the tax benefits. My mom opened the door, surprised. "Angela, Michael, you didn't tell us you were coming." "It was last minute," I said. She hugged me. She still smelled like the same lavender lotion from my childhood. For a brief second, I felt like I was 8 again, like she could fix anything just by holding me. We sat in their living room. Everything looked new. A large sectional couch, a massive flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, a sleek exercise bike in the guest room visible through the open door, a built-in wine fridge in the kitchen. I explained everything again. The deadline, the deposit, the time running out. My mom cried. Real tears. She held my hand tightly. "If we had it, we would give it to you," she said. "You know that, but we're older now. Angela, what if something happens to us? What if we need care? What if Sophie dies?" I whispered. My dad's expression hardened immediately. "That's not fair," he said. "You're trying to manipulate us. I'm asking you to help save your granddaughter." "We can't," he replied flatly. "I'm sorry." I looked around the room again. The new furniture, the expensive appliances, the comfortable life they had built. But no money for Sophie. We flew home the next morning, 2 weeks later, on July 10th. I convinced them to come see her at the hospital. I truly believed that if they saw her, if they held her hand, if they listened to her talk about getting a new heart like it was some kind of superhero upgrade, something inside them would change. We met at Lurie Children's Hospital, 4th floor, cardiac wing, room 418. Sophie lit up when she saw them. Grandma, Grandpa. She reached out her arms. My mom hugged her gently, careful of the wires and IV lines. "How are you feeling?" "Sweetheart, I'm okay," Sophie said. "The doctors said I'm going to get a new heart, like a superhero upgrade." My mom smiled through tears. "That's right, baby. You're so strong." My dad sat beside her on the bed. "You're a fighter, kiddo." They stayed for 2.5 hours. They read her a book, watched her favorite show, laughed at her little jokes. For a moment, it looked like a normal family again. Then we walked out to the parking lot. "Dad, please," I said one more time. He shook his head. "Angela, we've already talked about this." They got into their rental car and drove away. The deadline was 7 days later, July 17th, 2021. I called Dr. Carter. "We didn't make it," I said. My voice sounded empty, like it didn't belong to me. "We don't have the money." There was a pause. "I'm so sorry, Angela," she said softly. "What happens now? We'll continue supportive care, manage her symptoms, keep her comfortable. Comfortable, not saved. Comfortable. She's 7 years old." I said. "I know," Dr. Carter replied gently. "I'm so sorry." That night, Sophie asked me when she would get her new heart. I lied. I told her soon. August was unbearable. Her ejection fraction dropped to 17% by August 25th. She lost weight quickly. She was exhausted all the time, Even playing with her toys became too much. One afternoon, she lay on the couch while I sat beside her, gently brushing her hair. "Mommy," she said softly, "I'm tired all the time. Is that normal?" I forced a smile. "Your heart is working really hard, baby. You're so strong." She looked at me with those bright eyes. "When do I get my new heart soon?" I whispered. But we both knew I was lying. The doctors had already told us the truth. We didn't have months. We had weeks. I called my parents one last time on August 21st. They didn't answer. I didn't leave a message. On September 10th, Sophie was admitted to the ICU. Her heart was failing. Michael and I didn't leave her side. We held her hands. We told her stories. We sang her favorite songs. At 6:35 a.m. on September 11th, 2021, her heart stopped. The doctors rushed in. I watched them perform CPR on my 7-year-old daughter. I watched the monitors, the numbers dropping, the urgency in their voices. Then the silence. At 6:52 a.m., Dr. Carter looked at me. Time of death, 6:52 a.m. Michael collapsed into sobs, his entire body shaking. I just sat there, holding Sophie's hand. It was still warm. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I sat there for 40 minutes before they gently asked me to let go. I didn't call my parents. Daniel did. I don't know how he found out. Maybe through the hospital, maybe through someone else. It didn't matter. When my daughter took her last breath in my arms, it felt like my entire world shattered into pieces I could never put back together. No parent should ever have to watch their child fade away like that. I truly wouldn't wish this kind of pain on anyone, even now. I still struggle to understand how my own parents could stand there and choose not to help when her life was slipping away. Maybe you see it differently. If you believe they made the right decision by protecting their finances and future, comment, "That was the right decision." But if you feel what they did was cold and unforgivable, comment, "How heartless." Your perspective could help someone else feel less alone in their own story. After learning of his granddaughter's death, they flew in for the funeral. September 16th, 2021. Oak Ridge Memorial Park, Chicago. Over 300 people came. Friends, co-workers, parents from Sophie's school, people from our church, even strangers who had donated to help her, people who cared, people who had tried. My parents sat in the back row during the funeral. They didn't come up to me before the service. They didn't sit beside me. They stayed far away, like distant observers instead of grandparents who had just lost a granddaughter. My mom wore a black designer suit. My dad stood stiff in a navy blazer. After the service, at the cemetery, my mom finally approached me. "Honey," she said softly, reaching for my hand. "We're so sorry. If there's anything we can do..." I pulled my hand back. "You could have done something," I said. My voice sounded empty, like it belonged to someone else. "You didn't... That's not fair." My dad started, "Please just leave," I said. He opened his mouth again, but I had already turned away. 2 days later, an envelope arrived in the mail, a condolence card. Inside was a check for $500. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deposited it and donated every dollar to Lurie Children's Hospital in Sophie's name. After that, I stopped speaking to them completely. At least, that's what I thought would be the end. The next 2 months barely felt real. I quit my job. I couldn't sit across from other families and offer them hope when I hadn't been able to save my own child. Michael went back to work after 3 weeks because we still had bills to pay. Life didn't stop just because ours had shattered. I stayed home. I sat in Sophie's room for hours, sometimes all day, surrounded by her toys, her drawings, her clothes that still smelled like her. I didn't sleep. Nights blurred into mornings. I would lie awake until 3, 4 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, every conversation with my parents, every plea, every moment they chose not to help. On November 21st, around 2 in the morning, I was scrolling through my phone in the dark. I don't even know why. Maybe habit? Maybe I just needed something to distract me from the silence. That's when I saw my mother's post. Spent a beautiful weekend visiting Daniel's stunning new home by the water. So proud of our son. There were photos. 6 of them. Daniel and Rebecca standing on a balcony overlooking a wide stretch of lakefront. Floor-to-ceiling windows behind them. A modern kitchen with marble countertops. Hardwood floors. Everything polished. Expensive. Perfect. I stared at the screen. Daniel bought a house. I closed the app. I put my phone down. I didn't sleep that night. And I didn't forget. For the next 2 months. The image stayed in my head. That house. That view. The pride in my mother's words. On January 16th, in the middle of another sleepless night, I opened my laptop. I don't even know what I was looking for at first. Maybe confirmation. Maybe something to do with the anger building inside me. I searched for lakefront properties in Chicago. I scrolled through listings until something clicked. The same view, the same balcony. I found the building. Luxury waterfront units starting at over $500,000. I went deeper. I searched public property records, typed in the address, and there it was. Owner Daniel Hughes. Purchase date October 18th, 2021. Sale price $610,000. My hands started shaking. October. A little over a month after Sophie died. I clicked into the full transaction history. That's when I saw it. Purchase agreement signed August 25th. Down payment $140,000. Co-signers Robert Hughes and Karen Hughes. August 25th. Just over 2 weeks before my daughter died. While I was begging for help, they were signing paperwork. While I was praying for more time, they were investing in real estate. I printed everything: property records, transaction history, financial documents, page after page. I placed them all into a binder. I didn't cry. I couldn't anymore. When Michael came home the next evening, he found me sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers. "What is all this?" he asked quietly. I slid the binder toward him, read it. I watched Michael's face as he flipped through the binder. Confusion at first, then disbelief, then something darker. "They had the money," he said quietly. "Angela? They had it the whole time." I didn't answer. I just pointed to the next pages. He turned to page 18. My father's investment account statement from July 2021. Balance $700,000. Page 19. My mom's retirement account rollover. Over $500,000. More than $1 million. But somehow, no money to save their granddaughter. Michael kept reading, his jaw tightening. Then he suddenly stood up and walked into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he came back holding the old tablet we used to use years ago, the one we shared with my parents for photos back when we still spoke regularly. "It's still logged into your mom's email," he said. I felt something cold settle in my chest. He opened the inbox, scrolled back to August 2021, and then stopped. "There," he said. He handed me the screen. An email. From my father, to my mother, and to Daniel. Dated August 12th, 2021. Subject: investment opportunity. I read it once, then again, then a third time. He wrote about reviewing the numbers, about how strong the real estate market was, about how a $140,000 down payment would generate solid returns. Then I reached the part that made my hands go numb. He mentioned my daughter. He said they had discussed my situation, that they wanted to help, but had to be realistic. That the transplant was a risk, that even with surgery, the survival rate wasn't guaranteed. That they would be liquidating a large portion of their savings for something uncertain. Then the final line. The property is a stable investment. Family assets should remain within the family. I stared at those words. Family assets should remain within the family. I wasn't family. Sophie wasn't family. We were a risk. A maybe. A bad investment. Daniel's house was the safer choice. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Instead, I opened my laptop and created a timeline. I needed to see it clearly. July 17th. We missed the transplant deadline. August 12th. My father approved Daniel's purchase. August 25th. They signed the agreement and transferred the money. September 11th. Sophie died. October 18th. The deed was finalized. Daniel owned the house. They had the money. They always had the money. They just chose not to use it. I looked up at Michael. I want to see them, I said. He frowned. What do you mean I want a family dinner? All of us. You. Me. My parents. Daniel. Rebecca. He was silent for a moment. I want them to look me in the eye, I said. Michael studied me for a long time, then slowly nodded. Okay. I called my mom on February 3rd, 2022. She answered almost immediately. Angela, hi. Mom. There was a pause. Then her voice broke. Oh my God. I didn't think you'd ever call again. I've been thinking, I said calmly, about everything. About us. I want to try to fix things. Silence. Then quiet crying. Really, I think we should have dinner. All of us. Talk. Start over. Yes. She said quickly. Yes. Of course. I'll call Daniel. We can do it here in Scottsdale. When can you come next weekend? Saturday. Perfect. I'll cook your favorite. I'll bring something. I said. You don't have to. I want to. We booked the flights that same night. Michael asked me if I was sure. I showed him the binder. I'm sure. February 12th, 2022, 6 p.m. We pulled up to my parents' house. Daniel and Rebecca's car was already in the driveway. My mom opened the door before we even knocked. She wrapped her arms around me, crying. I'm so glad you're here, she whispered. I stood there, stiff, letting her hold me for a moment before gently pulling back. Hi. Mom. My dad appeared behind her in the doorway. My dad looked older, thinner than I remembered. Angela, he said, holding out his hand. I shook it. Daniel and Rebecca were in the living room. Daniel stood up, uneasy. Hey, sis, long time. Yeah, I said, long time. We sat down for dinner. Everything looked normal, perfect. Even, my mom had cooked. The table neatly set. Like this was just another family evening. For a while, we talked about nothing. Work, weather, small things that didn't matter. Then my dad asked, Are you still at that nonprofit I quit? I said. After Sophie died? I couldn't help other families when I couldn't save my own. Silence. My mom quickly changed the subject, talking about Daniel's house. We visited in November. It's beautiful. I saw the photos, I said calmly. She smiled. Isn't it amazing? It is. When did you buy it? Daniel, October. I think October 18th, I said. He hesitated. Yeah, sounds right. And the offer August. Why I reached into my bag and placed the binder on the table. Everything stopped. I opened it. This is Sophie's death certificate, I said quietly. My mom's face went pale. I turned the pages one by one. Property records, wire transfer, bank statements. $140,000, I said. From your account. 2 weeks before she died. No one spoke. Then I read the email. Every word. When I reached the line about family wealth staying in the family, my voice trembled, but I didn't stop. You had over $1 million, I said. My dad stood up. This is out of context. You told me you had nothing. We didn't have liquid cash. You had enough to save her. My mom started crying. We were thinking about the future. She was the future, I said, my voice rising for the first time. She was 7. Daniel spoke quietly. It was a financial decision. There were no guarantees. I stared at him. Say that again. She didn't have certain odds. He said, the house was a stable investment. My chest tightened. She was a child. My dad's voice turned sharp. We made a choice. We had to protect ourselves. His investment made sense. Made sense? I repeated. Yes. He said, then, louder, defensive, angry. He added, even if we had given you the money, she might have died anyway. We would have wasted it on a... He stopped, but I was already looking straight at him. On what I whispered. My mom gasped. Rebecca's fork slipped from her hand and hit the plate. Michael stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. Daniel went pale. I stood slowly. I looked straight at my father. You're right, I said. My voice was calm now. Too calm. Sophie is dead. And you killed her. Not the disease. The room froze. You had the money. I continued. You chose a house over her heartbeat. You chose comfort over her life. You chose your son over your granddaughter. My mom broke down, sobbing. I picked up my bag. This is what happens now, I said. You will never contact me again. No calls, no messages, no emails. You don't show up at my house. If I see you somewhere, I walk away. My dad tried to speak, but I didn't let him. You're not my parents, I said. You're investors who decided my child wasn't worth the risk. I turned to Daniel. He looked shattered. Enjoy the view, I said quietly. Every sunrise from that house. Remember what it cost. I looked at Michael. We're leaving. I left the binder on the table. Keep it. I said. Frame it. We walked out. Behind me. My mom was crying. My dad was shouting something I didn't care to hear. The door closed. And that was the end. Or at least, I thought it was. The first week after that dinner was relentless. My mom called dozens of times. I didn't answer. I blocked her number. My dad sent emails. I deleted them without opening. Daniel texted once. We need to talk. I blocked him too. A few weeks later. I changed my number. No one told them. Then the letters started coming. Handwritten. My mom's familiar handwriting on cream envelopes. I returned them all, one after another, until one arrived on Sophie's birthday. She would have turned 8. That one. I didn't send back. I burned it in the sink. Michael found me standing there, watching it turn to ash. He didn't say anything. He just held me. I started therapy soon after. Dr. Laura Bennett. Quiet voice, kind eyes. She didn't push. She just listened. One day she asked, are you grieving your daughter? Or your family both? I said. Then I paused. No, I corrected myself. Just my daughter. The other one was never real. Something in me shifted after that. I went back to work a few months later. But not the same job. I couldn't go back to the person I used to be. I started working with children in the foster system. Kids who had been abandoned, overlooked, failed. I understood them. Slowly, life started to rebuild itself. Michael and I found our way back to each other. We laughed again. Not the same way, but enough. We planted a cherry blossom tree in the backyard for Sophie. It bloomed every spring. I built a life where family meant the people who showed up, not the people who shared your blood. I thought that chapter was over, that I would never have to think about them again. And then, one afternoon, my phone rang, December 5th, 2026. I was at work, reviewing a case file. I didn't recognize the number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing the case of a 14-year-old girl who had been moved through 6 foster homes in 2 years. I was trying to find her somewhere stable, somewhere she could finally feel safe. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. Hello. There was heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Angela, please don't hang up. My body went still. It's Mom. I said nothing. I know you don't want to talk to me. I know. But it's Daniel. He's dying. My grip tightened around the phone. He has leukemia. He collapsed at work. The doctors say he needs a bone marrow transplant. They said you're his only match. Please. I'm begging you. My voice came out cold. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter, please. Angela. I don't have a brother. And I hung up. I sat there, staring at the wall, unable to move. When Michael came home that night, I was still in the same position. What's wrong? He asked quietly. I told him everything. What are you going to do? Nothing, I said. He didn't argue, but I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. 2 days later, my phone rang again. A different number. Ms. Hughes, this is Laura Bennett. I'm a patient advocate at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your brother, Daniel Hughes. Her voice was calm, professional, without judgment. I didn't hang up. She explained that Daniel had been admitted with acute leukemia, aggressive. He had started chemotherapy, but without a bone marrow transplant. His chances were very low. We've tested all immediate family members. None are matches, she said. You're his only sibling. There's about a 25% chance you could be compatible. And you want me to get tested? I asked. Yes. It's a simple blood test. There's no obligation beyond that. I closed my eyes. If I say no? There was a pause. We'll continue searching the registry, but the odds of finding a perfect match are less than 1%. Without a transplant, he likely has only a few weeks. A few weeks? Sophie had months, and that hadn't been worth it to them. I'll think about it, I said. Of course, but time is very limited. I agreed to the test. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Just information. December 12th, 2026. They drew my blood. 3 vials. 3 days later. The call came. Miss Hughes, you're a perfect match. 10 out of 10. I didn't respond. That's extremely rare. She continued. You're his best chance. 3% chance. A miracle. What happens if I say no? He may have weeks left. With a transplant, his 5-year survival rate could be up to 70%. Better odds than my daughter ever had. I need time, I said. For 4 days. I didn't sleep. Michael stayed close. He didn't pressure me. He just made sure I ate. That I wasn't alone. But my mind kept going back to Sophie. What would she want? I already knew the answer. I hated it. On the 3rd day, I went to see Dr. Bennett. I told her everything. What's stopping you? She asked gently. If I save him, they win. I said, My parents, Daniel, they get what they always wanted. And if you don't, I was quiet for a long time. Then I become them. She leaned forward slightly. If Sophie were here, what would you say to her? I closed my eyes. I could see her. Her smile. Her voice. Her small hands reaching for mine. I closed my eyes and saw her clearly. 7 years old. Bright eyes. That smile that could light up any room. I'd tell her I love her. I whispered. I'd tell her she's the best thing I ever did. And what would she tell you? I already knew. I had always known. She'd tell me to save him. On December 19th. At 9 a.m. I made the call. I'll do it. I said, I'll donate. But I have conditions. The coordinator's voice stayed calm. Of course. What do you need? I don't want to see my parents. I don't want to see Daniel. I'll do this. And then I'm done. We can arrange that. Separate areas. Private recovery. Okay. Thank you. Angela, you're saving his life. I'm not doing it for him. The procedure was scheduled for December 27th. Michael asked if I was sure. I looked at him. Sophie would do it. So I will. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to ask you something. What would you do if the people who hurt you the most suddenly needed you to save them? I flew to Chicago on December 26th. Everything had been arranged. Private room, separate waiting area, no contact. But I still saw my mother, just for a moment, in the hallway. She saw me, her face collapsing as if something inside her finally broke. Angela. Security stepped between us. Ma'am, you need to step back. Thank you. She cried. Thank you so much. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. The pre-op room was quiet. The nurse explained everything. Bone marrow extraction, general anesthesia, hours of surgery. You're very brave, she said. I'm not brave. I replied. I'm just not them. The next thing I remember was being wheeled into the operating room. I counted backward. 10, 9, 8. I didn't make it past 7. When I woke up, my body ached. My hip felt like it had been hit with something heavy. Michael was sitting beside me. Hey, he said softly. Did it work? They got what they needed. His transplant is tomorrow. I nodded and closed my eyes. Later that evening, there was a knock on the door. I knew who it was. Daniel stood there, pale, weak, almost unrecognizable. I know you don't want to see me, he said quietly. I just needed to say something. I didn't invite him in. I don't deserve this. He continued. You could have let me die. I would have understood. I'm sorry. For everything. I looked at him for a long moment. Okay, I said. He blinked. That's it? What do you want me to say? That I forgive you? I don't? I took a breath. But I'm not going to let you die. Not because you're my brother. Because I'm not like them. He nodded slowly as he turned to leave. I said, Sophie would have wanted me to do this. Remember that? 3 weeks later, I was back home when the call came. The transplant worked. The coordinator said, he's going to recover. I listened quietly. He wants to thank you. No, I said. There was a pause. What you did was extraordinary. I did what my daughter would have done. I replied. Then I hung up. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall. Something inside me felt different, not better, not healed, but lighter. 6 months later. In June 2027, a letter arrived. Not directly to me, but forwarded through the hospital coordinator with my permission. The envelope was thick. I almost didn't open it, but I did. Angela, We don't expect forgiveness. We don't deserve it. We made a choice that destroyed our family. Your father hasn't been the same since that night. Neither have I. We're both in therapy, trying to understand how we became people capable of what we did. Last month, we sold our house. Every dollar. $400,000 has been donated to Lurie Children's Hospital in Sophie's name. It won't bring her back. It won't undo what we did. But we needed you to know we were wrong. Completely. Devastatingly wrong. If you ever want to talk, we are here. If not, we understand. We love you. We are so sorry. Mom and Dad attached was the donation receipt. Sophie Claire Hughes. Cardiac Fund. I stared at it for a long time. Then I called Dr. Bennett. They donated everything. I said, "How does that make you feel?" She asked gently. "I don't know. That's okay." Should I respond? "What do you want?" "I don't know that either." "Then wait," she said, "until you do." So I waited. A year passed. In February 2028, I made the call. My mom answered on the first ring. "Angela." Her voice broke immediately. "I want to try something," I said carefully. "Just coffee. Or breakfast." "Yes," she said quickly. "Yes, please." That Saturday morning, they stood on my porch. They looked older, smaller somehow. I opened the door. "Come in." My mom hugged me. I stayed still for a moment, then gently returned it. We sat at the kitchen table. Michael had prepared coffee, eggs, toast, 4 plates, 4 chairs. At first, we barely spoke. Then slowly, conversation came back. Small things. Work. Weather. Ordinary life. Sophie's photo sat on the shelf nearby. We all saw it. No one mentioned it. When they stood to leave, my mom hesitated at the door. "Can we do this again sometime?" I thought about it. "Maybe," I said. "I'll let you know." My dad nodded. "That's more than we deserve. Thank you." They left. Michael wrapped his arm around me. "How do you feel?" I watched their car disappear down the street. "It's a start," I said. And then I cried. Not from grief. From something unfamiliar. Something like hope. People often ask me if I've forgiven them. I don't have a clear answer. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a process. Some days I still feel anger. Some days the loss feels just as sharp. But I also see this. They gave everything they had to help other children. Children like Sophie. Children who still have a chance. Daniel calls sometimes. We're not close. We may never be. And that's okay. I didn't save him because I forgave him. I saved him because I chose to be different. Because Sophie taught me something my parents never understood. Love isn't a transaction. It isn't measured in risk or return. It's a choice. And I chose differently. A few weeks ago, I visited Sophie's grave. I brought her favorite flowers. Sat there for a long time, talking to her. For the first time in years. When I stood up to leave, I smiled. My phone buzzed later that evening. A message from my mom. "Thank you for today. Love you." I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. And maybe that was enough. If you would make the same choice as me, choosing compassion over pain, saving someone even after everything right, I support you. So I know I'm not alone. If you'd walk away, right, never help. And if you see it differently, please share your thoughts with me. There was a moment when I realized pain can either harden your heart or expand it, and that choice defines who you become. Losing my daughter broke me in ways I can't fully explain, but it also taught me that love is not about fairness, nor is it something we measure like a transaction. It is a decision we make, even when it hurts. I chose to act with compassion, not because others deserved it, but because I refused to become like them. If this story touched you, take a second to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and leave a like so more people can feel less alone through stories like this. Your voice matters more than you think. It can bring light to someone else's darkness. See you in the next story.